I'm standing in a conference room in Manhattan, looking at my father through glass walls he can't see through, and he has no idea I've been watching him for the last 6 months. He's older now. Grayer. The confidence he always carried like armor looks thinner. My mother sits beside him, hands folded, that same tight smile she used to give me when I asked for things Jason never had to ask for. Their lawyer is talking. I can't hear the words, but I can read my father's face. He's scared. Good. But let me back up, because the moment I realized my parents were capable of erasing me started 4 years ago, in a high school gym in New Haven, Connecticut. I was 22. Cap and gown. Honor cords around my neck. I'd graduated summa cum laude, which meant nothing to the 2 empty seats in Section B, Row 7. I kept glancing over during the ceremony. Kept telling myself they were stuck in traffic. My mother, Linda, was always running late. My father, Robert, never missed important days, at least not for my brother. But when the dean called my name and I walked across that stage, the only sound I heard was sneakers on gym floor and polite clapping from people who didn't know me. No flash from a camera. No voice shouting my name. Just wooden bleachers and fluorescent lights. I smiled anyway. What else do you do? Afterward, I sat in my car for an hour. Called twice. Texted 3 times. Did you make it? Nothing. By midnight, everyone I knew had posted photos. Parents hugging. Flowers. Tears. I scrolled through every single one, sitting on my childhood bed, staring at those glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck to the ceiling in 7th grade. I wondered when I'd become so easy to forget. My mother finally called the next morning. Not apologetic. Not rushed. Just breezy. "Oh, honey," she said, like she'd missed a dentist appointment. Something came up. That was it. No make-up dinner. No explanation. Just something came up, and then silence. I packed my car 2 weeks later and drove to Massachusetts. Told myself closure was optional. Told myself I didn't need them to move forward. I was wrong about a lot of things back then. For 3 years, I worked 3 jobs in Cambridge. Paid rent on a studio the size of a closet. Survived on dollar pizza and the kind of stubborn anger that doesn't let you quit. My parents stopped sending holiday cards. I stopped expecting them. Then my brother got married in New Jersey. I found out on social media. The photos were beautiful. Ivory and gold. 200 guests. I wasn't one of them. That should have destroyed me. Instead, it did something else. It made me stop waiting for the apology I was never going to get. And then, on a Tuesday in March, I got an email that changed everything. The subject line was blank. The sender was a company I'd never heard of. The message had one sentence. "We'd like to discuss an opportunity. Are you available?" I almost deleted it. I didn't know it yet, but that email was the beginning of the end for my family. And the reason I'm standing here now, watching my father squirm. The interview process lasted 4 months. First, they flew me to New York. A building in Midtown with no logo on the entrance. I sat in a room with 2 people who never gave me their names. They asked about my degree in data forensics. Asked if I was comfortable working alone. Then they asked something strange. "How do you feel about family loyalty?" I remember pausing. The question felt personal in a way job interviews aren't supposed to be. "I think loyalty has to be earned," I said. One of them wrote something down. The other just nodded. 2 weeks later, they flew me to San Francisco. Then Denver. Then Cheyenne, Wyoming, a place I didn't even know had office buildings. The facility sat behind a chain-link fence. No sign. No logo. Just a gray structure with blacked-out windows and a guard at the gate who checked my ID 3 times. Inside, I signed papers I wasn't allowed to read carefully. NDA after NDA. each one thicker than the last. "You understand you can't discuss the nature of this work?" a woman in a navy suit asked me. "Not even generally." "Not even generally." I signed anyway. The offer came via encrypted email 2 weeks later. I read it 4 times before I believed it. $5 million. Per month. Not annually. Monthly. My hands shook holding my phone. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same bed I'd eaten 70-cent ramen on the night before, and tried to process what this meant. I could pay off my loans in a week. I could stop waking up at 5 a.m. to work a shift before my real job. I could stop being the version of myself my parents thought I'd always be. Small. Forgettable. Insufficient. I accepted the offer that night. Within 6 months, my life became unrecognizable. An apartment in a high-rise overlooking the Hudson River. A driver who knew my schedule better than I did. A number in my bank account that felt like fiction. But the strangest part? My family still hadn't called. Not once. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I'd moved on. But late at night, when the city went quiet, I'd check my phone. Just in case. It stayed dark. Until one afternoon in September, when a Connecticut area code lit up my screen. I stared at it for 3 rings before I answered. "Kira." My father's voice boomed through the speaker, warm and emotional, like we talked every week. "We heard about your new job. That's incredible, sweetheart. We're so proud." I said nothing. Because I hadn't told anyone. "How did you hear about my job?" I asked. My father laughed. That same easy laugh he used to give Jason when my brother made a joke at dinner. "Word travels, honey. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was. I'd signed documents that made discussing my employment a federal issue. The only people who knew were my employer and the government agencies we worked with. "Who told you?" I pressed. A pause. Half a second too long. "A friend of a friend mentioned it. You know, network connections. Anyway, that's not important. What's important is we'd love to see you. Your mother's been asking about you constantly." That was a lie. I could hear it in the way he said it. Too quick. Too polished. "She has my number," I said. "Well, you know how she is. Always worried she's bothering you." Another lie. My mother had never worried about bothering me. "Listen, we're planning a family reunion. Virginia. Just a weekend. Nothing formal. We thought it'd be nice to reconnect." Reconnect. The word sat bitter in my mouth. "I'll think about it," I said. Of course, of course. No pressure." "But Kira," his voice shifted. Softer now. Almost vulnerable. "We've missed you." I hung up before he could say anything else. For a long time, I sat there, phone in my lap, staring at nothing. They'd missed me. For years of silence, and now they'd missed me. By the end of that week, my mother called. Then Jason. Then an aunt I hadn't spoken to since I was 16. Every conversation had the same undertone, casual questions about my work, vague mentions of investments, offers to help me manage my money. They thought I was stupid. They thought I didn't see it. But here's what they didn't know. My job wasn't just high-paying. It was specific. I worked for a private firm contracted by federal agencies. We tracked financial crimes. Shell companies. Tax fraud. Money laundering schemes hidden under layers of LLCs and family trusts. We found people who thought they were untouchable. And 3 months into my employment, during a routine audit of entities flagged in Connecticut, I saw a name I recognized. Robert Bennett. My father. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Common name. Different person. But then I saw the addresses. The business partners. The dates. The same week I graduated, while I sat alone in that gym, my father had been in a law office in Hartford, signing documents that moved assets into my brother's name. Not mine. Jason's. They hadn't missed my graduation because something came up. They'd skipped it to erase me from the family finances. And now, 4 years later, they wanted back in. I closed my laptop that night and smiled for the first time in weeks. Because they had no idea what I knew. And I wasn't going to tell them. Not yet. The reunion was in Arlington, Virginia. A rented house with a wraparound porch and enough bedrooms for the entire family. I drove down on a Friday. 6 hours alone with my thoughts and a playlist I didn't really listen to. Part of me wanted to cancel. Turn the car around. Let them wonder. But another part, the part that had spent 4 years carrying their silence like a weight, needed to see their faces. I arrived just before dinner. The driveway was full. Jason's SUV. My aunt's sedan. Cars I didn't recognize. My mother opened the door before I could knock. Kira. She pulled me into a hug that lasted too long. I stood there, arms at my sides, breathing in her perfume. The same one she'd worn my entire childhood. Hi, Mom. She pulled back, hands on my shoulders, eyes scanning my face like she was cataloging changes. You look wonderful. Doesn't she look wonderful, Robert? My father appeared in the hallway behind her. Older than I remembered. Thinner. But his smile was the same, broad, confident, practiced. There's our girl, he said. Our girl. I hadn't been their girl in 4 years. But now, suddenly, I was. Inside, the house smelled like roasted chicken and vanilla candles. Family photos lined the walls, mostly Jason. A few of me from childhood, back when I still counted. Jason met me in the living room. He'd put on weight. Looked comfortable. Happy. Hey, stranger, he said, hand extended for a shake. I took it. His grip was firm. Performative. Congratulations on the wedding, I said. He blinked. Oh. Yeah. That was, thanks. He didn't apologize for not inviting me. Didn't even acknowledge it. We ate dinner at a long table. 12 people. Cousins I barely knew. An uncle who asked what I did for work. I can't really talk about it, I said. My father laughed. She's being modest. Our Kira's doing very well for herself. Everyone looked at me. Waiting. I smiled. Said nothing. After dinner, my mother cornered me in the kitchen. I'm so glad you came, she said, rinsing a wine glass. We've been worried about you. You went so quiet after graduation. I called, I said. You didn't answer. She paused. Just for a second. Then continued rinsing. Things were complicated back then. Your father was dealing with some business issues. It was a stressful time. Business issues. I thought about the documents I'd seen. The transfers. The timing. What kind of business issues? I asked. Her hands stilled. Just, investments. Restructuring. Nothing you need to worry about. She set the glass down, turned to face me. The important thing is we're here now. Together. She reached for my hand. I let her take it. And I thought about how easy it would be to tell her what I knew. But revenge isn't a single moment. It's a series of choices. And I was just getting started. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the guest bedroom, floral wallpaper, quilted bedspread, the kind of room designed to feel welcoming, and listened to my family laughing downstairs. Someone told a story about Jason's honeymoon. My mother's voice carried up through the floorboards, bright and animated in a way I hadn't heard her speak about me in years. I pulled out my laptop. The files were encrypted, accessible only through a secure server, but I'd been granted remote access for emergencies. This wasn't an emergency. But I logged in anyway. Robert Bennett's financial profile filled my screen. 3 LLCs registered in Delaware. 2 trusts established in 2021, the year before I graduated. Property transfers in Connecticut and Rhode Island. And one particularly interesting transaction dated May 14, 2022. My graduation was May 15. The day before I walked across that stage, my father had moved $470,000 in assets into an irrevocable trust. Beneficiary, Jason Michael Bennett. I scrolled further. There were more transfers. Smaller ones. Spread across 18 months. Each one carefully timed, carefully hidden. But here's what made my hands go cold. The paperwork showed a second intended beneficiary. A line item that had been crossed out, initialed, and removed. Kira Marie Bennett. My name had been on those documents. And then it wasn't. I closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling. They hadn't just excluded me. They'd erased me. Legally. Deliberately. And now they wanted back in because they thought I had money worth accessing. A knock at the door startled me. Kira? Jason's voice. You still awake? I shoved the laptop under the pillow. Yeah. Come in. He opened the door halfway, leaning against the frame. Casual. Non-threatening. Just wanted to check on you. I know family stuff can be, a lot. I sat up. I'm fine. Cool. Cool. He nodded, but didn't leave. So, this job of yours must be pretty serious if you can't talk about it. It is. Government work? I met his eyes. I signed a lot of paperwork that says I can't answer that. He smiled. Not warmly. Right. Of course. A pause. Dad mentioned you might be looking into investment opportunities. I've got a guy, financial advisor. Really solid. If you ever want an introduction. There it was. I'll keep that in mind, I said. He's helped me and Dad diversify some assets. Tax strategies, that kind of thing. Could be useful for someone in your position. Someone in my position. He meant someone with money they wanted access to. Thanks, Jason. I'll think about it. He lingered another moment, like he wanted to say more. Then he nodded and left, pulling the door closed behind him. I waited until his footsteps faded down the hall. Then I opened my laptop again. Jason's name appeared in the files too. Not as frequently as my father's, but enough. He'd co-signed documents. Received transfers. He knew exactly what had happened. They both did. The next morning, my father suggested we take a walk. Just the two of us. I want to talk to you about something, he said, pouring coffee into a travel mug. Father-daughter. No distractions. I agreed. Because I wanted to hear what he'd say when he thought I didn't know the truth. We walked through the neighborhood. Quiet streets. Expensive houses. The kind of area my parents always said they'd retire to. I'm proud of you, Kira, he started. I know we haven't always been close. I know I haven't always been the father you needed. I said nothing. But I want to change that. I want us to be a family again. Why now? I asked. He glanced at me. What do you mean? Why now, Dad? Why not 3 years ago? Or 2? Why wait until now? His jaw tightened. Just slightly. Life gets away from you sometimes. Work. Stress. Before you know it, years have passed. You made it to all of Jason's events. He stopped walking. That's not fair. Isn't it? We stood there on the sidewalk, morning sun cutting through the trees, and for a moment I thought he might actually tell me the truth. Instead, he sighed. I made mistakes, Kira. I'm trying to fix them. By asking me about investments? His face shifted. Surprise, then defense. I never. Jason mentioned your financial advisor. Mom asked about my work 3 times yesterday. You think I don't see what this is? He looked away. You've done well for yourself, he said quietly. Better than any of us expected. Can you blame us for wanting to be part of that? The honesty was almost worse than the lies. So you skipped my graduation, cut me out of your life, and now you want back in because I have money. It's not that simple. Then explain it to me. He couldn't. Or wouldn't. We walked back to the house in silence. That afternoon, I told them I had to leave early. Work emergency. My mother hugged me goodbye. My father shook my hand. Jason waved from the porch. I drove away and didn't look back. Because the next time I saw them, it wouldn't be at a family reunion. It would be across a table. With lawyers present. And they still had no idea. Back in New York, I requested a meeting with my director. Her name was Victoria Chen. 50s. Sharp. The kind of person who noticed things other people missed. We met in her office on the 42nd floor. Windows overlooking the East River. Everything glass and steel and impersonal. You wanted to see me, she said, not looking up from her tablet. I need to disclose a potential conflict of interest. That got her attention. She set the tablet down. Go on. The Bennett case. Robert Bennett. He's my father. Her expression didn't change. I'm aware. I blinked. You're aware? We vet everyone who works here, Kira. Family connections. Financial histories. Criminal records. We knew about your father before we hired you. The room felt smaller suddenly. You knew? We knew. She leaned back in her chair. We also knew you hadn't spoken to your family in years. That you'd been excluded from financial distributions. That you had no reason to protect them. My throat went dry. That's why you hired me. She didn't confirm or deny. Just watched me with those sharp, dark eyes. The question is, she continued, now that they've made contact, now that they're attempting to re-establish a relationship, does that change your position? I thought about my father's face on that walk. My mother's hug. Jason's questions about investments. No, I said. It doesn't. Victoria nodded slowly. Good. Because we're close to building a case. Federal prosecutors in Connecticut are interested. We have documentation of fraudulent transfers, tax evasion schemes, and asset concealment spanning 6 years. What do you need from me? Your testimony. You're listed as an intended beneficiary on several of the original documents. Your removal creates a pattern of fraud. With your statement, we can establish intent. She slid a folder across the desk. I opened it. Inside were copies of everything I'd already seen. Plus more. Bank statements. Email correspondence. A recording of a phone call between my father and his attorney discussing the daughter problem. That's what I was. A problem. When? I asked. 6 weeks. Grand jury convenes in November. If they indict, the trial would likely start early next year. I closed the folder. There's one more thing, Victoria said. Your family will be notified of the investigation approximately 2 weeks before the grand jury hearing. It's standard procedure. They'll know it's coming. Will they know I'm involved? Not initially. But they'll figure it out. I thought about that. My father receiving a letter. My mother's face when she realized. Jason calling me, demanding answers. Can I ask you something? I said. Victoria nodded. That question in my first interview. About family loyalty. Was that a test? A small smile. The first I'd ever seen from her. Everything's a test, Kira. I left her office and took the elevator down 42 floors. Outside, the city was loud. Taxis honking. People shouting. The kind of noise that usually felt overwhelming but today felt like static, something to drown out the thoughts in my head. I'd made my choice. In 6 weeks, my family would know they were being investigated. In 7, they'd know I was the reason why. But here's what I couldn't stop thinking about as I walked back to my apartment. My father had called me our girl at that reunion. He'd hugged me. Asked about my life. Pretended the last 4 years hadn't happened. And part of me, some small, stupid part, had wanted it to be real. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just hurt once. It keeps hurting every time you remember you wanted to believe them. I got home and poured a glass of wine I didn't drink. Then I opened my laptop and started writing everything down. Every conversation. Every question. Every moment at that reunion. Because when this went to trial, I'd need to remember. Not just what they did. But how they made me feel while doing it. And feelings, I was learning, make excellent evidence. The call came on a Tuesday. I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed. A Connecticut number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, another call. Then a text from Jason. Call me. Now. I excused myself from the meeting and stepped into an empty conference room. Jason answered on the first ring. What the hell is going on? His voice was tight. Angry. Dad just got a letter from the federal government. They're investigating him. Us. For financial fraud. I said nothing. Kira, are you there? I'm here. Did you know about this? The question hung between us. I could lie. Tell him I was as surprised as he was. Play the concerned sister. But I was tired of pretending. Yes, I said. Silence. Then, what do you mean, yes? I mean I knew. I've known for months. How? My job, Jason. The one you've been asking about. The one Dad wanted to talk investments about. I work in financial crimes investigation. I heard him breathing. Fast. Shallow. Are you? He couldn't finish the sentence. Am I what? Involved? Yes. I'm involved. You're testifying against us? Against Dad. You're just collateral. A bitter laugh. Collateral. Jesus Christ, Kira. You knew, I said. My voice was calm. Steady. Don't act surprised. You co-signed half those documents. You knew exactly what he was doing. That's not. You knew he cut me out. You were at that meeting. May 14, 2022. The day before my graduation. You were there, Jason. More silence. We thought we were protecting family assets, he said finally. That's all it was. From me. From anyone who might. From me, I repeated. Say it. He didn't. Mom doesn't know, he said instead. About any of this. She just signed what Dad told her to sign. Then she has nothing to worry about. You really think they're going to see it that way? You think prosecutors care about intent? I think Mom should have asked more questions. She trusted him. She trusted us. And I trusted all of you. My voice cracked. Just slightly. I trusted you to show up to my graduation. I trusted you to include me. I trusted you to at least pretend I mattered. Jason went quiet. This is revenge, he said softly. That's all this is. No, I said. Revenge would have been telling you the first time you asked about my money. This is just accountability. They'll lose everything. They took everything from me first. That's not the same. Isn't it? Neither of us spoke for a long moment. Mom's going to call you, Jason said finally. Dad too. They're going to beg. They're going to apologize. They're going to promise things. I know. And you won't change your mind. No. He hung up. I stood there in that empty conference room, phone in my hand, and waited for something to feel different. For relief. For satisfaction. For anything. But all I felt was tired. My phone buzzed again. Mom calling. I watched it ring. 4 times. 5. Then I turned the phone over and went back to my meeting. Because I'd spent 4 years waiting for them to call. They could wait a few hours for me. My mother left 14 voicemails in 3 days. I listened to all of them. The first was confused. Honey, call me back. There's been some kind of mistake. The second was worried. Your father's very upset. We need to talk about this as a family. By the 7th, her voice had changed. Harder. You need to fix this, Kira. Whatever you told them, you need to take it back. The 14th was just crying. I deleted none of them. My father didn't call. He sent his lawyer instead. The attorney's name was Paul Westbrook. He left a message with my office receptionist requesting a meeting. Professional. Courteous. Completely transparent about what he wanted. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop in Midtown. He was already there when I arrived. 50s. Expensive suit. The kind of lawyer who'd spent a career making problems disappear. Miss Bennett, he said, standing to shake my hand. Thank you for meeting with me. I sat across from him. Ordered nothing. I'll be direct, he said. Your father is willing to settle any grievances you may have. Financial compensation. A formal apology. Whatever you feel is appropriate. In exchange for your cooperation. Or rather, your non-cooperation with the federal investigation. I almost laughed. You want me to withdraw my testimony? We want to resolve this privately. Family matters should stay in the family. Is that what your client told you? That this is a family matter? He shifted slightly. I've reviewed the case. The evidence is largely circumstantial without your statement. With it, the prosecution has a strong case for fraud. Without it, my father walks away. Essentially, yes. I leaned back in my chair. What did he offer you? I asked. To make this go away. Specifically. Westbrook opened a folder. Slid a paper across the table. I read it. $2 million. Paid immediately. Plus a formal written apology and reinstatement as a beneficiary in the family trust. He's buying me, I said. He's attempting to make amends. 4 years too late. Better late than never, some would say. I pushed the paper back across the table. Tell my father I'm not interested. Westbrook didn't move. Miss Bennett, I understand you're angry. You have every right to be. But consider what you're doing. Your testimony will destroy your family. Your mother. Your brother. Not just your father. They destroyed me first. They just didn't think it mattered. You're not destroyed. You're successful. You've built a life. Despite them. Not because of them. He closed the folder slowly. There's something you should know, he said. Your father has early-stage Parkinson's. He was diagnosed 6 months ago. Prison at his age, with that condition, it would be a death sentence. The words landed like stones. I sat very still. Is that supposed to change my mind? It's supposed to give you context. He had context when he erased my name from those documents. He had context when he skipped my graduation. He had context every single day for 4 years when he didn't pick up the phone. Westbrook stood. Buttoned his jacket. I had to try, he said. For what it's worth, I think you're making a mistake. But I understand why you're making it. He left a business card on the table. I sat there long after he was gone, staring at that card. Parkinson's. My father was sick. And part of me, that same stupid part that wanted to believe them at the reunion, felt something crack inside my chest. But then I thought about those empty chairs. That voicemail from my mother. Something came up. I thought about my name, crossed out and initialed. I thought about Jason's wedding. The photos I saw on social media. 200 guests. Family and friends celebrating while I worked a double shift at a coffee shop in Cambridge, wondering what I'd done to deserve being forgotten. My father was sick. But he'd made his choices when he was healthy. And so had I. I left the coffee shop and went back to work. That night, Victoria called. Paul Westbrook reached out to our office, she said. Attempted to negotiate. I know. I met with him. And nothing. I'm testifying. A pause. The grand jury convenes next week, Victoria said. After that, if they indict, this becomes public. Your name will come out eventually. Are you prepared for that? I looked out my apartment window. The city stretched below me, lights cutting through the dark. Yes, I said. Your family will know. The media might pick it up. This could follow you. I know. Okay. Her voice softened slightly. For what it's worth, you're doing the right thing. I wasn't sure I believed her. But I was sure of one thing. I was done being the person my family thought they could erase. The grand jury indicted my father on 17 counts. Wire fraud. Tax evasion. Asset concealment. The news broke on a Thursday morning. I saw it first on my phone. A headline from the Hartford Courant. Connecticut businessman indicted in multi-year fraud scheme. There was a photo. My father leaving the courthouse, hand raised to block the cameras. My mother stood behind him, face blank. Jason wasn't in the shot. I read the article twice. My name wasn't mentioned. Not yet. But it would be. My phone started ringing by noon. Numbers I didn't recognize. A reporter from a local news station. Someone claiming to be a family friend. I blocked them all. That evening, my mother called one last time. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Kira. Her voice was barely a whisper. Please. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. He's your father. He stopped being my father a long time ago. Don't say that. Don't, she broke. Full, gasping sobs. We made mistakes. I know we did. But this? Destroying him like this? I'm not destroying him. I'm telling the truth. It's the same thing. Maybe it was. Why didn't you come? I asked. The question I'd carried for 4 years. To my graduation. Why didn't you come? She went quiet. We were handling things, she said finally. Financial things. We thought. You thought I didn't matter enough to show up for. No. God, no. We thought we were protecting the family. I was family. You are family. Not when it mattered. The line went silent except for her breathing. If you do this, she said softly, if you testify, we'll lose everything. The house. Our savings. Everything. I lost everything 4 years ago, I said. You just didn't notice. I hung up before she could respond. And this time, when the phone rang again, I didn't even look. The trial was set for February. 3 months away. I went back to work. Attended meetings. Filed reports. Lived my life like nothing had changed. But at night, alone in my apartment, I'd open my laptop and look at the photos from my graduation. Me, standing on that stage. Smiling for a camera held by a stranger. Empty seats in the background. I'd stare at those seats until my eyes blurred. And I'd remind myself why I was doing this. Not for revenge. For the version of me that walked across that stage alone and wondered if anyone would ever think she mattered. She deserved this. Even if it hurt. I'm back where I started. Standing in that conference room in Manhattan, watching my father through glass he can't see through. The trial ended yesterday. Guilty on 14 of 17 counts. Sentencing in 6 weeks. My mother sat in the courtroom every day. Front row. Her face never changed. Jason came once. Left halfway through my testimony. I haven't heard from him since. When I finished speaking, when I stepped down from that witness stand, my father looked at me. Not angry. Not betrayed. Just tired. Like he finally understood what he'd lost. Now he's in that conference room with his lawyer, discussing appeals they can't afford. My mother's beside him, holding his hand. I should feel something watching this. Victory. Satisfaction. Relief. But all I feel is the weight of those 4 years lifting. Not because I won. Because I finally stopped carrying their silence. My phone buzzes. A text from Victoria, well done. Drink tonight? I type back, rain check. Because there's somewhere I need to be. I drive to New Haven. Park outside the high school. The gym where I graduated is dark now, locked. But I sit in my car and stare at it anyway. 4 years ago, I walked out of that building believing I was forgettable. That I wasn't worth showing up for. I know different now. Not because I destroyed my family. But because I chose myself when no one else would. My phone lights up again. Connecticut area code. I stare at it. 4 years ago, I would have answered immediately. Now? I let it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then I silence it and drive home. Because the loudest revenge isn't what you say. It's what you finally stop waiting to hear. And I'm done waiting.